anytime there's a new exec role, we try and just get really, really crisp on what do we actually need in this role.
How do you think about growing your own versus hiring from outside?
I think you need both, is the truth. But I think that companies and leaders tend to underrate internal talent. I think a lot of people who interview don't have as many reps interviewing as they need to be really great at interviewing.
If you don't know that role, you should reach out to somebody that does.
AI doesn't exist for AI's sake. AI is just another tool, software, technology to help people accomplish the same goals. Think about all the things that matter in your day. I feel like hiring and retaining and growing talent has got to be like one of the most important things a senior leader can do.
Welcome to Whispered Hiring, the podcast where we talk with senior leaders about how they find, vet, attract, and grow go-to-market talent. I'm Andy Millett, founder of Whispered. We built Whispered because we believed your next role won't be posted, it'll be whispered. Today, I'm joined by Jon Dick. Jon is the CCSO, Chief Customer Success Officer at HubSpot. He started his career in marketing at before HubSpot, then moved to HubSpot where he led VP of Marketing and spent the last 10 years there where he's risen all the way to CCSO. I'm so excited to have Jon on this one because the experience I'd had in working at Culture Amp with HubSpot and their CS team was just amazing. It was probably the best customer success experience I've ever had. Kelsey, who was our CSM at the time, introduced me to Jon. So Jon, great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I'm so glad to be here. It's such a cool topic to get to spend some time on. I think exec hiring is really interesting. And thank you for the kind words about the HubSpot customer success team. I agree with your sentiment. Some of the most kind, caring, committed, passionate professionals I've ever worked with. And Kelsey, who connected us, is an absolute star. She's gone on from being CSM. She's had a long career journey at HubSpot too, and she's now my chief of staff on customer success. So she's leading at a huge scale now.
You got it. Well, Kelsey, thank you for making the connections. Great to every couple of years we cross paths. Jon, I think one thing I've observed from the outside, and watching Kelsey is a good example, and yourself too, HubSpot's got a lot of amazing leaders that have grown up with the business that's fairly unique. I'm curious, how do you think about growing your own versus hiring from outside?
Yeah, Andy, I think you need both, is the truth. But I think that companies and leaders tend to underrate internal talent and overrate external talent. And one of my more controversial takes is that I think having seen the movie is not particularly helpful anymore. And that actually almost everything that's changing in the world right now requires you to start with just first principles, the ability to identify first principles, understand first principles, execute against first principles, and execute fast against first principles. So, I think that a lot of times people look and say, I need somebody from the outside because they've seen the movie before, and that's what's going to save this team, or that's what this team needs. They need fresh, you can go talk to all those people. I'm sure they will make time for you, and you can learn all those things, and then you can apply them yourself internally. But it turns out you don't need someone who's seen the movie. You need someone who can direct the movie or be the star in the movie, and those are very different things than being in the audience, I think. And so, I do think you need a mix though, because I do think fresh eyes go a long way. And I do think fresh ideas go a long way. And I do think inserting new energy into a company is important. So it's not all or nothing, but I think I tend to, really prioritize internal talent a lot, because you have a clear ability to understand whether somebody can grow, can learn, can adapt, can change, can tackle hard problems, can deliver within the culture, can deliver within the business model, et cetera. So, there are a lot of long-term leaders at HubSpot. I've been here a decade at HubSpot, and I still feel actually new compared to some of the leaders at HubSpot. And I think that's so funny. So, yeah.
Well, it's the last role for everybody at HubSpot. And I think if people aren't aware, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, but your CEO came from customer success as well too, right?
So Yamini joined us, I guess in 2019, and she joined from Dropbox. And she actually came in as what we call the chief customer officer. And at HubSpot, we define the chief customer officer a little bit differently. The chief customer officer, back then, this role doesn't exist anymore, ran marketing, sales, customer success and RevOps. So ran kind of the full, what we called like the whole go-to-market team. So Yamini came in actually running the whole go-to-market team. And before that, she was in that role at Dropbox. And she actually came up more through an ops background originally, and actually started out in sales, was an engineer. She's kind of done it all.
That's great. Well, I love the people that have done multiple different roles. At Box, we were so focused on the growing internally as well too. I think great larger companies do that. We had a whole program around high potential people. I'm curious what HubSpot does to grow internal talent. Are there programs, investments, cultural changes that have made you folks so successful?
Yeah, we do have some internal programming for high potential and top talent. We've got programs that you would expect, like we've got a program called like HubSpot Fellows, and basically you bring in people really at like the manager, senior manager, sometimes senior IC level who have exhibited some real talent, and you bring them all together for a week, and you take them off the floor and you just let them learn. It was originally, I think, set up by our, founder and former CEO and chairperson, Brian Halligan. And he leveraged his network in Boston to get, really amazing professors from Harvard Business School and MIT and, senior leaders from other companies. And it's so cool because they get that exposure, they get to do the case method, they get to try it all out. And it's just really focused on them learning. So we do have some programs like that we do. It's also, I think we just try and be really clear, during comp and other times and promotions to really be clear about, who top talent are and who the people want to invest in are, and be sure that we align the whole system behind them to make sure they want to stay at HubSpot.
I like that. That retreat for high potential people, especially interesting that the thought process around what level it's at is really valuable because they also build relationships with each other. And they like each other. And it's
they got a whole channel going after, they stay in touch, they go visit,
Yeah, they cry together, they drink together, they party together, all of that stuff. Yeah. You said your leadership team has a lot of folks that are homegrown. Like, how do you go about, I need that next leader, figuring out and recruiting? Do you have a group of people in-house that you're kind of nurturing and growing? Do you, say you're going for a VP plus level position, like, how do you approach hiring for that? And or just the going to market with that role? Do you go to market internally first, externally, and then if you go externally, how do you do it?
Most of the time, we still go externally, and actually, I do buy the premise of Whispered, and I do think that increasingly it's going to be more about whispered roles. So I think that is true, and I see that play out. Also, I don't know. I think it's important to create the opportunity for people to come inbound to roles. And I think maybe some of that's just HubSpot's DNA. HubSpot's an inbound marketing company at our core. And inbound transcends any marketing tactic of Google search or whatever. It's really just about the idea of attracting people to your company or your organization. So I do think it's really important to be able to create the space to attract people. And we have hired some really great external talent through inbound that I have seen go on to be so successful at HubSpot. But we also look internally as well. And I think, anytime there's a new exec role, we try and just get really, really crisp on what do we actually need in this role? And I actually think that's probably the thing that people get the most wrong when it comes to exec hiring. I think most people, when I started doing exec hiring, used to just approach and be like, well, I'm going to write a job description. It's going to list some things. It's going to be kind of generic. And I'm going to just let a bunch of inbound. I'm going to do a bunch of calls, and I'm going to calibrate based on what I'm learning. And I'm going to be like, oh, I think that's what I want. And I'm going to calibrate through the process, right? Until I land on now, oh my gosh. In retrospect, the thing you have to put the real time into when you're doing exec hiring is being so clear up front on what skills you actually need from somebody. What are the non-negotiables? What behaviors? What skills? Et cetera. Because I think if you don't do that, you don't have the right bar for what you're looking for, and you end up just getting into the process, and then you get shiny object syndrome, and you're like, well, I got to hire one of these people from this process because I got to hire this role, and then you just kind of end up just settling is the wrong word, because I've hired many really talented people that way. But also it's just, it doesn't set them up on the right on the right foot to start with, because they don't know exactly what you want, et cetera. So,
Or you get longer processes that are wandering.
longer processes. Yeah, you end up going back to your recruiter and you're like, actually, like, I got to change everything about it. Like, I'm all off. And you're like, oh, what a waste, so.
I couldn't agree more with you. I talked to companies $100 and X million, and they're like, we threw up 4 different ChatGPT posts on this thing. We put one underneath this division, one underneath here. Like maybe it's going to be a GTM engineer, maybe it's going to be a RevOps role. We don't know. We're just going to interview all the people and we're going to see, right? Like they're not hiring 4 roles, they're hiring 1 role, but they just threw up a bunch of these posts. And I think it's like, I would bet that the percentage of people that ChatGPT their job descriptions is
It's
in that
very
95th
Very high.
percentile. Yeah. I think what we've started, like my biggest thing I love doing is if you don't know that role, right? And so I spend a lot of time in RevOps. A lot of our other GMs spend time in CS and other places. But I'll literally, if you don't know that role, you should reach out to somebody that does. And whether that is a third-party recruiter, it's probably not your internal TA team for these senior level roles, because they're good, but they haven't done it before in the same way. And so I think you really verbalized it well, which is get your ducks in a row up front before you start to hire on this. Shiny object syndrome is there, or you just get enamored by somebody that interviews really well.
Exactly. Which is like not what you want at all. Like, just because somebody interviews well doesn't mean they're going to be amazing at the role that you need them to be in.
Yeah. How do you structure interview processes, and like, what is there a HubSpot culture like an Amazon bar raiser? Like, how do you think about interviewing?
So, HubSpot does have a structured interview process that we go through. Absolutely. And I would say that, some of the characteristics of it, there's definitely an approach to a slate. We definitely have gotten, one of the things we've gotten a lot better at over the last like 5 to 7 years versus when I first joined HubSpot is being like really crisp on like, no. I need every person on this interview panel to ask the same set of questions so that you can calibrate incredibly effectively on the candidates versus each other. And again, that comes back to you knowing what you want out of the role and telling people, I need you to interview for this thing. And so I think that has helped tremendously in our ability to really calibrate on talent super effectively. And I think that that's mattered a lot. Otherwise it is, can be a very standard type process, with, recruiter phone interview, manager phone interview, followed by a panel, sometimes depending on the role, a presentation. I think for exec hiring, I do think that, one of the things that I typically try and do, and this is something I learned from our CMO, Kip, who I worked for Kip for a long time, and I kind of rode along with him. I think he's one of the best exec hirers that I know, mainly because he hired me. That's kind of a joke. Okay.
I got to do
it. Yeah, thank you. All right. I didn't know. It's too quiet. Okay.
Yeah.
But, I think that I learned a lot from Kip about hiring. And, I think one of the things that Kip does that I try and replicate for exec hiring is spending some like really like an extended period of time with somebody. It can be over a dinner. It can be whiteboarding in the afternoon, over coffee. There's a lot of different ways to do it. But I think that the opportunity to spend less structured and more free-form time together is really important. Not only because, especially at the exec level, like you're just going to spend a lot of time together throwing ideas back and forth. That is just a huge part of the role. And so you need to be able to be like, can I do that with this person? But also the opportunity, I think, to more deeply explore ideas over time is also really key. And sometimes you can't get that in the structured, like, well, I've got this amount of time and I got all these questions to get through. So I think that's something that, I try and have in my process for exec hiring that really helps with, balancing out the structured, slate and standard set of questions there. And I think the other thing for exec hiring that, like many companies, we have, you can rate people, everybody has to calibrate and rate. And there's like, yes, and like, and strong yes, and I think increasingly for exec hiring, you need almost everybody on the panel to be a strong yes. And I think it is bad if you have a lot of people come in at just yes. I think a lot of people who interview don't have as many reps interviewing as they need to be really great at interviewing. It's just hard. You just don't get that many shots at it. And I think to be a great interviewer and a great at hiring, I think you need a lot of repetition. You need to learn what works. And I think therefore, people coming out of an interview often are unwilling to take a strong stance or kind of default to like, I guess so. I guess they passed the interview. I'll give them a yes. And if like you don't have a bunch of strong yeses in there, like you probably have a problem on your hand. So I think that's another thing that I've begun to kind of adopt.
I agree with everything you said. Especially the part about like, we aren't born great interviewers.
Yeah, it's
We
hard.
get there
It's just
because
a skill.
I mean, you probably of a month, like how many interviews are you doing a month? 30 to 50? Or how do you think about that?
At this point, I'm not doing that many interviews right now. In fact, my whole leadership team is currently internal. I don't have anybody on my leadership team that was an external hire that I made. I've been on this team for almost 2 years now. And some people were already on the team. Some people came with me from the marketing department. That leadership team has kind of been a core, but just really focused on building that leadership team. So I haven't done as much exec hiring, and I'm not nearly as involved in the IC hiring on the team right now, where most of the hiring is kind of happening. But it does take a lot of reps. And in my past life, I have had way more reps and have spent way more of my time, many interviews a week, hiring at the manager, senior manager, director level. So, I had, an opportunity to get some of those reps.
I like that. I actually enjoy the ones where I'm not the hiring manager coming in because I can be a little bit more controversial. Your point on extended period of time with somebody resonates deeply with me. I try to do it if I'm the hiring manager. When do you do that in the process?
I think you do it towards the end. I think it's a big. I always try and respect people's time and energy in one of these processes. And it's like, if we're getting very serious, I think it's worth spending that time together. And I think anytime, I hope the candidates really like it too, because it's a huge risk for them to join a company. And it's like, to imagine joining a company and trying to build a new chapter of your life after a couple of interviews with somebody, especially at the leadership level, where it is harder to switch and it is, more tied to you as a person in a brand. I think it's a big ask. And so I think it's towards the end. I think it's, typically in the, final round tied to a bunch of interviews. It's nice to do it after a day of interviews, honestly. It's nice to do a debrief dinner on that, and get to spend the time together just because it's all very fresh and you can talk about it. You've gotten some feedback from people. But the afternoon whiteboard session also works really well, heading into a day of interviews. So
honestly, if a manager didn't do it for me, I wouldn't take the job, right? Like I'm in the mode of, you want somebody. I have this tactic I recommend people use, which is I'll show up and I'll be like, hey, John, I'm excited that you're going to hire me. Here's my user manual. Would you take a look at it and just see how I tick? I don't expect you to write yours, but would you do it? And you could answer it one of two ways, right? Like, hey man, you're coming to work for me. Just take the job or not. Or you could be like, no, I'll spend the 3 hours. We'll talk about how we tick, how we work. And that's the type, even at the senior levels, I know a lot of people are at this mindset of at the senior levels, you don't really need mentorship. I'm like, no, but you still need a boss that you can work well with.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it's like, I think it also is indicative of what time they might have for you when you're an employee.
Bingo. Yes.
Which is like, okay, so what happens when I'm really in a pickle here? Like, are you going to carve out 2 hours with a whiteboard with me and work through this? Or am I going to be on my own here?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It becomes interesting because you're probably reporting up to Yamini, but I see so many CEOs that, if you ask the average number of reportees of a CEO, they're probably in the 20 to 30, or they don't know, the classic of I don't believe in one-on-ones anymore. I'm hearing pop up more and more from CEOs in the Valley now. It's like, no, you just got to figure it out. I think your point is right. Even at that VP or C level, I still need time sometimes to talk through these problems in an unstructured setting where it's not like I need an immediate answer. Not that I need guidance, but I want to roll through the pros and the cons on these things. And so, a boss that would give you the time of day, I think is an important thing for sure.
I think what's kind of interesting on the one-on-one question, and I do one-on-ones. I am trying to create more group time, I think, but I actually find that I find the ability to have ad hoc time with a manager even more valuable than the pre-scheduled time. And I definitely try and keep time in my schedule for that, which is establish the culture on the team, which is if you're really working through something, we can meet today. I have the time, I have the flexibility. And so I just feel that's, and now HubSpot is a mostly remote company. And that's working really well for us. But that's what you used to kind of get in the office setting, was the ad hoc, like, I'm kind of struggling with this problem. Can we go talk about it for a few minutes, or can you take a walk with me? And I feel like not having that and only living in a, like, well, I can only talk to you on Monday at 3:30. It's just like, by the time you get there, who knows if the problem is still there, or if you've lost the energy or the passion on it, et cetera.
I think you're right. I think it's also like there's the you as a boss doing that. I think the other thing is I expect people to work for me at the senior levels to know how to manage up, right? So to know how to ask for that time, to know how to frame trade-offs versus like, I need more resources. I'm like, no, I remember, you probably know John Herstein at Fox, is
Mhm.
my manager. He's CCO over there.
Nice.
And John said to me one time, he's like, you're not going to get any more headcount until the business gives it to you. I was like, okay, so I can't beg for headcount anymore. I've got to like force people to make trade-offs, which I
Yeah.
thought was brilliant. And so I think a lot of those like mentalities of people can't just fall into the ad hoc time with John and kind of like get all their problems solved, but they need to be able to leverage John well is important as well. I listened to Dharmesh recently talk about AI and how you guys are completely rethinking the company with AI. I'm curious how that comes into your interview process, in terms of like evaluating for AI fluency, and does the way and you evaluate people, has it changed over the last couple of years?
Yeah. So I would say, first and foremost, like, HubSpot. Yeah, we are. I mean, I say this to our team all the time, and any prospective employee, I try and say the same thing to, which is like, we want HubSpot to be one of the best places to get the skills for the next 10 years of your career. And it's not like AI is unique to HubSpot. It is every single company, every single professional in the world is trying to figure out how to adapt to it. And I think that, we really want to put the time, energy, investment, point of view, tools, et cetera, in place at HubSpot, so that every employee feels like that's like a big reason to be here, is that I'm going to learn so much. And so I think we're very focused on that. Now, our core belief about AI is really that the future workforces are hybrid. We really believe in the idea of, human authenticity plus AI efficiency, and that is like a real secret sauce to how to, particularly how to go to market. And so that's definitely very core to the way that we have implemented AI at HubSpot, is to really make AI a force multiplier for our talent, and help our people do more and accomplish more than they could previously, as opposed to saying, well, we just want AI to replace our people. So we're very focused on the hybrid workforce idea, both in the way that we implemented HubSpot and the way we talk to our customers about AI. It does change, I think, what you're looking for in leaders. I think the good news for HubSpot is that HubSpot for a long time has always cared kind of more about learn-it-alls than know-it-alls. Like, we've really tried to be a place that we attract learn-it-alls, people who really care about learning. I hear that a lot from people who join HubSpot, is like, early on, they're like, wow, this place is very like self-reflective, and really is willing to like look back on decisions made or what happened and why. And I think we're really focused on having a growth mindset as people here. And it turns out, I think that's the most important thing for AI and learning AI and adopting AI, is the growth mindset right now. And kind of having a starting assumption of like, I don't know how to do anything anymore. I think one of the hardest things about AI at the moment is I think everybody feels like they're behind everybody else.
Hmm.
And
It's
everyone is,
imposter syndrome times five. Eh?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
And everyone's
I
always
know.
just posting like, look at my workflow. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm like, so you got to acknowledge that to start. But I think that evaluating talent on ability to be AI fluent, or more importantly, integrating AI. I think fluency is great. I think integration's better. I think a starting point is honestly just like being able to assess the characteristics that would make somebody able to implement AI. And so by that, yes, the learn it all mentality, or the growth mindset and ability to learn. Second, though, is what you might call like fly high, fly low. It turns out like AI doesn't exist for AI's sake. AI is just another tool, software, technology to help people accomplish the same goals. And it turns out that the way that AI works the best is if you can actually go deep on a process, on a workflow, on some job that people do, really deeply understand it, and then figure out how to document it, train AI, get the right processes in place. Like, you can't do that by just like saying like, do AI for this thing. like you got to go deep. And so if you can't fly low as a leader, like, so I think it starts with the characteristics, like, are you obsessed with learning? Number two, do you demonstrate that you have the ability to go super deep on different workflows or processes? Doesn't mean micromanaging, by the way. It means the ability to go deep on a process and understand it. And so you look for those characteristics, and then I think you combine them with, actual examples of how people, have rebuilt workflows. Like, describe a workflow you rebuilt. Like, how do you approach it? What were the keys? If you could do it over again, what would you do differently? What have you learned now that was different? Because, you identify that stuff. And the last thing I think, Andy, is that I actually think the ultimate tell of somebody's AI fluent is how prepared they are for the interview, how much they know about you and the company, because it used to take a lot of work to prep for an interview, and it still does take a lot of work. But I think if you don't come in with the basics knowledge of the business, the opportunities, the role, then you clearly didn't use AI, because I think it's pretty fast and easy to at least get a starting point on that from Claude or ChatGPT.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I sent our AI out to listen to all the podcasts you and the executive team have done. I mean, I happened to pick up Dharmesh's with Manny, I think it was. So I knew it, but yeah, no more lazy questions, right? Like,
it's
hey,
like,
what keeps you awake at night is a terrible question, right? Like,
Yeah.
or what are the biggest strategic challenges? And I feel like that stuff has gone out the window long ago, for sure. So that's a good one. Yeah. So you kind of know at some point, like, oof, this person is not prepped, and I can tie that with AI fluency in essence, because if they didn't, it should have taken them a 20-minute prompts to do that versus, yeah. Okay. How do you reference candidates towards the back end, and how do you close candidates?
I think referencing candidates actually starts with you talking to them about what you're going to learn when you backdoor reference them, which I think is probably my favorite interview question, or the one that I probably learned the most from. Is just that, like, honest self-assessment. Listen, everybody's got growth areas. To pretend that you don't is like, is lying. So you've got growth areas. I know you've got growth areas. I don't know what they are. I'm going to go back, back channel you, and I'm going to learn what those growth areas are. So why don't you just tell me what they are now and, like, get ahead of that. I think that is, like, probably the most interesting thing to understand how, like, self-aware and self-reflective somebody is. But I mean, obviously it's a mix of, front door references, back door references, et cetera. And I think, yeah. And so, that I think that's the best way to reference somebody. I think that in terms of closing people, I mean, I think this comes back to what we talked about, which is, like, ultimately at the end of the day, people want to work with and for people. And so if you've learned a lot about somebody during a process, like, I would hope that you could reflect in what you communicate and, what you send them, or whatever, that you've learned something about them, be it in the form of a gift that shows that you actually, like, remembered things about them, that you know who they are as a person, in the form of an offer, in terms of, like, I understand what you were looking for, and I tried to structure this offer in a way that reflects it. But I think that ability to personalize at the final step matters a lot, because I think it becomes the ultimate reflection of kind of, like, does this person know who I am and what I care about, and who I am as a person? And I think that kind of matters the most.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. I think sometimes too, the hiring manager, the person above the hiring manager is probably always that last interview. And I think sometimes they phone it in. I'm curious if Yamini has ever helped you close somebody.
Yamini has not helped me close somebody, but I didn't report to Yamini prior to this. Kip has helped me close people.
How did Kip help you close people? Was there anything amazing on that side, or any memorable stories?
I don't know. I'm probably biased in this, but I feel like I think a lot of people who meet Kip think, wow, I'm going to learn a lot from that person. I think Kip tries to spend a lot of his time having conversations about the things that they can learn together, and really try and make it about the opportunity for the person, which I think goes a long way.
I could not agree more. I saw the Inverse Summit the other day where a senior exec candidate met with the CEO of a very large company. They showed up 15 minutes late, and they basically just said, well, this is a builder role, not a manager role. Like, tell me this one thing you've built, and then they moved on and it was an 8-minute interview and they just took themselves out of the process, right? Like I think your boss can oftentimes close people or not as well too.
But I will tell you, I think coming back to Yamini, Yamini does create a lot of space, and I think she's very invested in hiring great talent. And I know she's spent a lot of time with other teams, and I do think that like level of commitment matters. And if you just like honestly think about all the things that matter in your day, I feel like hiring and retaining and growing talent has got to be like one of the most important things a senior leader can do.
It is like we've all gotten to this level, and it's just like you talk with your friends, you get on a podcast, and it's like I hear people talk every day about the importance of hiring talent. I don't think enough people take time to like take a step back and think about it. So I love that we're doing this. Maybe 2 questions as we wrap. The first one is like, how do you make a new hire successful, particularly within the HubSpot organization, but just generally?
Well, I think it actually starts with you defining the job clearly and appropriately. I think that again, just as sloppy as people get in like the defining of the job role, they also get sloppy in the like, does everybody in the organization understand we're hiring this person, why we're hiring this person, what we hope they accomplish? We've got the swim lanes figured out. Like too often it's like, well, we'll bring them in and then we'll like kind of figure it out over like 3 to 6 months. Like, it's so terrible for the person. It's like, the more that you, I think as the leader can just really get them set up for success at the start. I think great mentorship matters a lot. We do that at HubSpot. We ensure that every new senior leader has a mentor that's going to spend a decent amount of time with them. Yamini has started doing something that I think is really good for senior leaders, which is she actually, their first, even prior to like HubSpot onboarding, which senior leaders go through, like the traditional onboarding, we actually spend like a week together as a leadership team. So like when we hired our chief sales officer, it was like actually like the other member, like Kip and I and the other members of the go-to-market leadership team, flywheel leadership team, we all actually started out and we just like spent a couple days together deep diving and talking about the business.
So is that every time that the leadership team kind of like adds a new member to it or changes out a member, there's like a conscious coming together of the leadership team at that point in time?
Yep.
That is so special because you don't have to do the half hour here, let me meet you. That is a really great tradition.
And you make the list for a new hire, right? And you're like, you got to meet these like all these people, and everyone's busy, and it's like just carving out the dedicated space and time to go deep, and you combine that again with not only like work time, but also like time to get to know each other as a person and your families and your interests and your hobbies and your background and your prior roles and what you've learned, and I think it just sets people up for a better.
So would that be success. Like 8 people? Would that be 30 people? Like how many people does
not that many people. Smaller. So like when we hired our chief sales officer, it was 5 of us for a couple of days.
That's awesome because you come out a little bit more aligned. The harebrained ideas that a new person may have, what you want, may also be like, hey, we thought about this, or like, let's save you the cycles on this. And that is a really, really great idea. I like that one. The other one I've heard is, like senior leaders having dinners a click or 2 down, or the classic, like the offsite with the CEO type thing that can bring a lot as well.
I mean, I'll tell you what our engineering team does too in our product. Like our engineering team, they do embeds, and they actually spend their first 3 months coding just as a member of the team. So like they go and they rotate through a bunch of different teams, really learn the product, and then they come out of it and they like really know what they're talking about. So it's not just like, cool, like, I got some opinions. Like, it's like, no, like I've built some of this stuff with you. Like I've really seen the code base. I think the idea of an embed, even at the business side, is kind of interesting, and like really figuring that out. Like, how do you go really deeply learn the business?
I agree. I love that. That goes to your fly low, fly high point, or fly high, fly low. Maybe the last question before we wrap it. It's, I actually have 2. But in CS, with support getting shrunk, which is our traditional in CS hiring pool to go from, how do you think about like the future of your entire CS org? Like, where are those people coming from? Is it still like a smaller group of support people? And like, are there other areas you tap for great talent for CS?
Okay. Well, first of all, like we haven't done a big reduction of our support team. We have just been able to scale our customer base without needing to linearly add heads along with it. And I think that's the thing that, I think support AI has really good product market fit because it's mostly a content-based thing and you can really give it the right context that it needs. So it has great product market fit. It's a great place if you are not yet using AI in your go-to-market. It's a great place to start. But I think it's got it's kind of also great because there's kind of the trifecta of it's good for customers because they get fast, helpful responses. That's assuming you prioritize the CSAT of the experience. I think something a lot of teams get wrong with AI support is they just care about resolution rate.
over experience.
And we learned that, when we first started rolling it out, it was like, oh, look at the resolution rate. And it was like, ooh, the CSAT's not good at all. And it was like, you actually it's more important to get the CSAT up. And when you do that, it's great for customers. It's great for the team because they're now working on much more interesting and challenging problems. For instance, on our support team, we've got a big goal right now of helping a lot of our customers. We've got almost 300,000 customers, and we've got helping them. Most are SMBs, helping them figure out how to use AI in their go-to-market. We think it's such an incredible opportunity for them. It allows SMBs to punch above their weight class and get new capabilities they never could have dreamed of, but they need help and they need learning. And in the old days, our support team never would have had time to do that. Now, if our support team is working with a customer and they see an opportunity where there's really clear AI go-to-market fit, they're like, hey, do you want to do a quick 20, 30-minute call and just talk through how to set this up and do this in HubSpot?
Wow.
And we never would have been able to do that before because this is a pure ticket volume. And so this idea, it's good for reps. They're moving up the value chain. They're working on more interesting problems. They're helping customers in a more meaningful way. And yes, it's good for the company too, because it helps break your attachment to linear headcount growth from a financial perspective. But that's kind of the dream trifecta: good for customers, good for the team, good for the company.
I love it. You just described where a support person gets empowered to become to act like a CSM in these scenarios, right? Where it's just hey, I see the problem. Let's get on the phone and we'll diagnose. We'll talk about it.
Most of our support reps, they just want to help customers. They want to help customers. They want to help them solve problems. They want to figure things out. So yeah,
you guys are. It was the singular best large company support experience I've ever had. Right, over 4 years at Culture Amp, we grew from 7 million in revenue to 150 million, and every day Kelsey showed up and it's you're never going to Marketo, and we never did. So it was phenomenal, and I've been so impressed. So thank you for taking the time. The last one question, you beat me to my closing question, which is, who have you learned the most from in hiring? You talked about Kip. Are there any other lessons from Kip that we should that are good to share? Anything else you've learned from him along the way?
I have a lot of lessons learned from Kip. Strong opinions, loosely held, first principles thinking. I think a lot around hiring. I think Kip really prioritizes really understanding the behaviors and skills that you need in a person to be successful in a role and making it about that. Interestingly, when I joined HubSpot on the marketing team, I had really not done B2B marketing before. I was coming from B2C. I'd done multiple B2C stints. And again, I think some hiring managers would have said, well, I need 10 years of B2B pipeline generation for a sales team. And Kip was like, well, I need somebody who knows how to think about modern marketing automation. I need somebody who knows how to, collaborate successfully with a sales org and just has the personality to do that. I need somebody who can learn really fast. And so I think that's probably the thing I've learned the most is really focus on defining the skills and the attributes of the person that would be successful.
I couldn't agree more. How you think is almost more important. It's table stakes. Well, Jon, thank you so much for taking the time. This was just a phenomenal discussion.
This is great.
I'm excited to share with the world. Have a good day.